Alright, friends, I'm back. I'm still just troubleshooting, though. I might just talk to chat while I figure it out. Because I'm still figuring it out. I know, sound alerts, thank you so much. Here, let me get the chat back up on the screen. Alright, here you go. Hi, welcome back. Refresh. We're still fucking up. Hi, long leg Homo sapien, welcome in. How you doing? We are currently trying to figure out my shit. Big mountain? What are we talking about? Is this I called in sick today from work, so kinda nice? Yeah, you taking like a mental health day? Computer sound settings may be muted. That might explain it. But that doesn't make sense. I can hear shit. Oh no, please don't tell me that it's as simple as... Oh my god, can y'all hear now? Are we listening? Are we hearing music? Yes? Oh my god, thank you! Ah, I can hear! Okay, alright, fuck. Yay, we back! Alright. Also, long leg Homo sapien, I love those kind of days. I think that everyone needs like a mental health break day once in a while. So definitely... I hope you're using it well. I will have to get ready for work, so we'll just be lurking. Okay, alright. The music has been turned down on purpose now. So we are going to go right back excuse me, we are going to go right back into the fucking video. I lost like half of my viewers. Damn it. Well, welcome back, everybody. I'm glad y'all came back. I am just gonna go right back into the reaction. Hold on, where is it? Okay, here we go. And we're just gonna go from there, okay? Oh, it's the other way around. Cool.
Primarily about
I'm gonna turn them down
fellow
a bit.
Israelites, not foreigners. But I mean, also if you look in Judges 21, which isn't exactly God commanding anything, but it's still happening. Basically, you have some Israelites going and stealing a bunch of young, small girls for the Benjamites. They just took them right off the field. So
thank you, Seven Osiris.
I think that kind of goes hand in hand with the whole not following the law thing, which I saw Beckel shaking his head ferociously.
Yeah.
So
I'm
interested to hear about what you guys trying to teach us. Because if you're trying to teach us, I would recommend you read what you're talking about, because you're totally misrepresenting the Bible at this particular point.
No. I mean, I do
right
read it. I mean, on every...
Let G-Man make a statement
so
first.
sorry.
Let G-Man go.
Yeah, these two have been talking for a long time, and I'm sorry. There's some correction that's got to go on. So, Dr. Josh, I'll start with you. You said that that beating your slaves was necessary. I'm just paraphrasing here a little bit. And you were saying and that it was expected in order to control your slaves. And your example of this was, the spare the rod, spoil the child.
Yeah, Proverbs 29:19-21.
Okay, first of all, the scripture where it says spare the rod, spoil the child, that's talking about discipline. That's not talking about using a literal rod and beating a baby. Everybody in Christendom knows that. We know anybody that goes to church one week and say, I got that rod and I beat my, we're calling CPS on them. You know what I mean? Like, that's not what we teach. And you ain't gonna find nobody in the body of Christ that believes that unless they're a heretic.
No, if you look up to
wait a minute, I'm not trying. I think you guys talked enough.
God damn! He tried to cut him off, but he said no.
A lot of points. So
yeah.
So as far as like Exodus 21, let's deal with that first, with the whole, and Dr. Josh said that this is not a manual or whatever, but this is like a go-to for a lot of atheists about the immorality of slavery in the Bible, right? Where it says that, if you love your master, you know what I mean? Because, the master can give the slave a wife, you know what I mean? And it's looked upon as being a loophole, and he loves his master, then he can keep the wife and he can stay there. Anybody who actually reads the first few verses in Exodus 21 will know there's a specific law if you go in there by yourself, if you go in there and you bring a wife with you, and what happens if your master gives you a wife? That woman belongs to
Did he say master
owner.
like massa?
It makes logical sense
that
even if he marries her, you understand, he knows, because it is a national law. All 12 tribes of Israel would have known about this law. And even some nations round about Israel would have known this law. It is not a loophole. In order for it to be a loophole, the way the atheists talk about, the master would have to make that rule. Anybody can go type in what are the 613 or 617 laws that are mentioned in the nation of Israel, and you'll see all of them, and that happens to be one of them. You know what I mean? So no, that doesn't work. As far as man stealing goes, man stealing is a sin in Scripture. As a matter of fact, if your slave runs away, you are to let him just stay away. You're not allowed, for example, to just mistreat your slave in the nation of Israel, because they are bound to the other 600 plus.
Okay, hold on. How is man stealing not allowed, but keeping slavery is? Is he saying like stealing a slave from somebody else is not allowed? Is that what he's saying?
Laws that are mentioned in the Old Testament. For example, one of the things that's taught regarding your enemies is, let's say you happen to enslave an Edomite, right? In Deuteronomy chapter, what is that, 23:7, where it says, do not abhor an Edomite, for he is your brother. You know what I mean? And it has laws about the Egyptians and like the various different countries. And you'll notice that whenever they went to a foreign land, it was always judgment. And I challenge anybody on this panel to be able to show how that wasn't the case, and how they just like, I think I need me some free labor. I'm going to go to this other nation over here, and I'm going to snatch a couple of people up and bring them over to America like America did. And I would like to give an example of modern day slavery that is very much condoned. Unfortunately, I think Becco might correct me on this, everybody on this panel, and as our modern day prison system, and I'm going to save that for a little bit later. So
would you like to address
I will never shut up, bro. Go ahead.
Would you like to give an example or provide anything to contend with what G-Man's saying? G?
Oh, me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Becco didn't go. Becco's been waiting for like 12 minutes.
All right, sorry.
Yeah, I was waiting for Becco.
All right, sorry, go ahead.
It's like a WIC panel.
No, I'll wait. G-Man said a mouthful.
Except much politer.
And I commend him for that. So, I mean, much more I could.
Wait, we gotta get some of these people on WIC, dude. Can you imagine WIC hosting this panel? I think it'd be a banger. There also wasn't a concept of race back then. People were identified by what nation they were from. Yeah, that's true. That's true, Testy. But again, this particular person up here in the right-hand corner, upper right, like, they just don't believe that slavery is, like, they don't believe owning another person is bad, period, right? So
back off, but I want to hear some responses to what G-Man said so I can respond.
Okay, well, I mean, I posted in the chat a link to a book from Christians about how to use a rod to beat your child, and they use that exact thing. So, I mean, you're just playing a no true Scotsman fallacy if you're trying to say that no true Christian would beat their kid with a rod, as far as that verse goes. So, while it is about discipline, there are definitely Christians that take it very literally. About beating their children with rods. There's that. But also, I feel like you didn't really listen at all to what I said about how, about the whole no man stealing thing. Like, that was just about not stealing your fellow Israelite. It does not concern foreigners at all. Like, I mean, you see God literally commanding.
You never gave us a chance to respond. Becco would have responded to that. I'm sure of it. You never gave him a chance to respond to it.
What the hell?
No, I said you can go ahead and respond to what you said, but I would like to respond to the man stealing when you're done.
Hold on. Why is it that y'all get the 5 minutes or whatever, but I make one statement and automatically you got to just respond? Why is that there, G-Man? Kind of feels like a double standard there, buddy.
God damn.
What it is that you two spent a very long time talking. I made my first response, and I was expecting Veckel to go into the whole Jeremiah thing.
Veckel was happy.
I love the meta
convo.
True.
G made a statement. Veckel would like to make a response to it. So Veckel, if you would like to make a response to what G stated.
Well, I think Godless was trying to wrap it up or something like that. So I'll wait for him to wrap it up and then I'll
Thank
respond.
you for your respect. Thank you.
Holy shit,
G,
dude.
If you can finish that.
The meta conversation is amazing.
Okay.
I love it.
Fuck, I done forgot what I was gonna say. So just
from amongst let's get slaves be publicly owned. Jeez. Oh, now they don't want to say nothing.
Sorry about that. My daughter's playing with my phone. Okay. All right. Man stealing. First, I would challenge you, Godless, to show me one verse where God condoned or commanded the act of man stealing. Anywhere
what is
in
man
scripture.
Stealing again?
Everywhere I see it in scripture, I see it being condemned. In the Bible, where the conditions for slavery, enemies of Israel, as I said before, enemies of Israel that were made captives of war, going back to Numbers 31, which also we could talk about too, because you mentioned something about the Benjamites. I think you were talking about the Midianite girls. That's a little bit of a different topic, but we could talk about that too if you want. I'm more than
the kid in the background. Holy shit.
The enemies of Israel that were made captives of war, people who owed money to someone else. And
I think there's an actual here. Let me. There's actually a man stealer song, isn't there? No, it's Man Eater. I'm thinking of Man Eater. This one. I'm not actually gonna play it because I don't want to get yoinked, but
different categories of people who would be enslaved. You have people who volunteered their bodies into indentured servitude.
Oh, I know what you're talking about, Testy. I think that's Man Eater as well.
And some people were born into it. We're not gonna lie about that. Obviously, it's in the text. But again, unlike the slave trade that we saw with antebellum and the transatlantic slave trade, we don't see one example anywhere in scripture where God, outside of the act of war, where God commanded the Israelites to arbitrarily go and kidnap people from a foreign nation just to enslave them. Okay, now you haven't brought up one example yet. And furthermore, how do you refute these passages that are clearly in scripture that clearly show God condemning the act of man stealing? Okay, man stealing. What is man stealing? You can look at it in two ways. You can either look at it as you're stealing somebody else's property, okay? Or you could look at it as flat out kidnapping, okay? But that's the way the King James uses the word man stealing. You don't do that. Either way, either it's just flat out kidnapping or you're stealing another slave that belonged to somebody else. Either way, it's wrong. God condemns the act. Now, if you can show us anywhere in scripture in the Old Testament where God commanded and condoned this act, I would like to see it.
G?
Okay, so maybe I'm wrong. He is like just saying there's nowhere where God like specifically says you are to steal a person, and I'm assuming the condemnation comes from like the what's the face, like the whole like stealing is wrong, right? I for one think stealing another man's slaves is immoral. True.
Go ahead.
I want to see what they say to this.
Numbers 31.
Numbers 31. Do we want to look this up?
I put my head in my hand too there, Veckel, because I plainly laid out why the whole man-stealing thing does not apply to foreigners, because that particular portion, which I can't remember the verse right off the top of my head, but I know that it only is concerned with the Israelites. Like, you can't steal, like, you cannot kidnap or steal the Israelites.
Oh shit! Okay, hold on. Here we go. Have you allowed all the women to live? Now kill all the boys and kill every woman who has slept with a man, but save for yourselves every girl who has never slept with a man. Dividing the spoils. You and Eleazar the priest and the family heads of the community are to count all the people and animals that were captured. Jesus. From the Israelites half, select 1 out of 50, whether people, cattle, donkey, sheep, or other animals. Give them to the Levites, who are responsible for the care of the Lord's tabernacle. The plunder remaining from the spoils that the soldiers took was 675,000 sheep, 72,000 cattle, 61,000 donkeys, and 32,000 women who had never slept with a man. Jesus Christ. Welcome back, Mr. Beans.
God's chosen people. Numbers 31 plainly has God commanding them to go in, kill all of the Midianites, I believe it is, and take the women.
Can I ask you a simple question?
A simple question.
Sure.
Why?
Why?
Yeah. Why did God?
Because they worship different gods. They were a different group of people. They worship different gods differently.
So God gave them that command just because He didn't like what they were doing over there.
It's okay if they're evil. Yep, apparently.
That's the only reason.
I mean, as far as I know, the Midianites were seen as the enemies, and so went over there and.
Wait. What was that word? Wait. Say that again. As far as you know, the Midianites were what? Viewed as what?
Enemies.
Okay, if you're an enemy, that means there's some sort of conflict, right?
If I'm enemies with the guy in another town, or even across the border in Canada,
what's he gonna? Is this a gotcha?
With him,
is this a gotcha?
I should not go over there and kill the entire city and take all of the young women for sexual slavery.
How much history do you know about the conflict between Israelites and the Midianites?
It
Can you give us any
literally
details?
Does not matter. It has God saying, "Hey,
that's
go
the end of this
kill all
discussion.
them, take the young
That's
women."
the end of the discussion.
That's the end of this discussion then.
It's
How?
the chat.
Thank you.
Chat.
Thank
It's
you.
over.
Have a nice day.
Have a nice day, chat.
What?
Because now you're just kind of arbitrarily making up some sort of rules which you yourself cannot hold yourself accountable to.
How
What
so?
are you saying? Why are you saying? Why you're not giving us? You got two problems here. First of all, you're not giving us any details as to the type of conflict that was between Israel and the Midianites.
It's killing me that this kid is just sitting there like cooing in the
all
background.
you're doing though, and I mean this with the utmost respect, but what you're doing though is you're regurgitating the same garbage that we've heard atheists for years say over and over again. All they know about is Numbers 31, the little girls, because we know that's where you're going to go next, because we've heard it 1,000 times. The little girls, Moses tells the Israelites, kill all these people, the older women, but spare yourself the young girls and all this stuff. And then you want to try to argue that, this is validation for pedophilia. We've heard it 1,000 times. Come on.
What?
The fact of the matter is, though, what most people do, and including yourself, what you're not doing is you're not taking into context as to why God gave that command. Okay? It wasn't that God was sitting up in heaven just like, you know what, I'm bored.
He debating the baby?
I want to go kill a couple of mofos and their babies. Spare the girls. Hey, guess what, kings? I want you to go send some Israelites over there and, enslave them. They didn't do anything wrong. I just want you to enslave them. See, that's what you're thinking. See, that's one problem that you have. The other problem is, and this is a whole different topic here, is the issue of morality.
Yo, KB Gaming, I'm not from India. I'm from Sri Lanka.
I have a problem with. I know you have a problem with it, but that doesn't tell us whether or not the thing is in and of itself is inherently right or wrong. Okay, we're talking about morality here.
Also, wait, literally the kid sticking the phone in her dad's face. I'm dying. Look at this.
With the Bible in and of itself is inherently right or wrong.
I can't.
Okay, we're talking about morality here, or we're talking about what the Bible says about slavery? Shh.
Well, I mean, I'm just asking.
Those are two different topics there.
Yeah, they are two different topics, but also I don't think that it really matters all that much as to the reasons why they went to another city, killed everybody there, and took all the young girls as sexual slaves.
Though? That's the real question.
I don't think the reason matters there. The fact of the matter is that God said, "Go do this," and this is an action that we would find abhorrent now. But it's still just the pure fact that God said, "Go and do this."
So?
What do you mean, so? What do you mean?
I actually got.
What do you mean?
Oh shit! College engineer or something. You keep saying all the girls. In fact, you said it twice. All the women, actually, you said, and then you said all the girls. It's the virgins, my friend. The ones that have not been defiled by men. That's what the Bible says.
Would be the young girls and anybody that hasn't known a dick.
The reason why I bring this up
Giga
is
Chad.
we're talking about
Pars.
We're talking
He's
about
doubling down.
God condoning something that society would not consider to be good. And if we're going to talk about this, we need to be specific about what those passages say. It's not saying all the girls here, and it's not saying all the women. It's talking about the virgins who have not been defiled by men. I got a question.
Because that makes it better.
I have a question. What was that nation doing? Since you believe that the punishment for them was too harsh, what was that nation doing?
That makes it better, apparently.
It does not matter.
It doesn't matter?
It doesn't matter what they were doing.
Okay, so I disagree with you on 2 points. The first point is this. They were taking babies. They had these altars that looked like a bowl, and there was fire underneath it, and they were sacrificing these babies to their false gods. Okay? Now, us going going over there.
Wait a second. So is he actually trying to come in here and be like, oh yeah, it was totally justified? Because you see, these false religions, they were burning babies at the yeah, he's really trying to justify the Israelites taking people as slaves. They were sacrificing them to Moloch. Oh my god, what the fuck? They were really bad people. You don't get it.
And
oh my god!
And basically going over there and administering justice and keeping the women that were not how can I put this? Keeping the women that were not defiled by their traditions and all the stuff that was going on over there, makes sense because you want to try to preserve as many of them as possible and even integrate them into the nation of Israel. That is how life was back then. But I can't believe you're going to sit there and say it doesn't matter.
This guy pulling his face.
When America thought that that there were weapons of mass destruction over there in Iraq, and we went to war with them like that because of it. Are you serious? It does matter. If you look at any criminal case, Scholars Engineering, you look at the screen, dude, because this is really important.
What a pivot.
If you look at any criminal case, right? If a person is found guilty, listen here, okay? Before the judge administers their how long they're going to be in jail or they're going to be executed, the why is important. That's why we have manslaughter, first-degree murder, second-degree murder, and various different names for a crime that a person did. And it's going to determine on what the punishment is going to be. If you're going to sit here and tell me it doesn't matter, then it is you who's being intellectually dishonest about this conversation. Okay, I'm a black man. I'm against transatlantic slave trade. I'm against the transatlantic slave trade. Okay?
Wait,
I don't even like how the police treat us today.
Wait a second. This man, hold on. He's against the transatlantic... Wait, hold on a second. Didn't he say at the start of this conversation that he has no problems with a person owning another person as a slave? So then why would he be against, the fucking, the transatlantic slave trade? Jesus. Okay.
But do not try to put that into the Bible if you're not even going to accurately represent what is going on in the situation. And that's all I got to say about it.
Okay, now I will say, I think that if you're going to use the Bible's own words and the Bible's own moral what's the word? I can't think of anything but copium. Fuck. The way that they're explaining it to themselves, right? Justifications, that's the word. Are you gonna animate that bird in After Effects later? Mr. Geek, so I've been working on it in Spine. And my husband, Mr. Beans, is going to help put a he's built a framework for me before in Unity. So it's going to be set up through there, basically. So not After Effects, but like Spine and Blender. Right? No, well, I don't know if it's Blender, but he's gonna do some shit. But I'm working on the I'm working on the drawings and the animation part. I'll bring it up in Spine in just a second. And I'll show you what I've got so far. But yeah, we're gonna be working on it together so that we can make it into a chat interaction thing. And so that, like, if you can see the little bird sitting on top of the screen there, like, he'll be animated at some point and, like, respond to chat and stuff. But thank you, I appreciate it. But yeah, okay, so my point, so what I was gonna say with this guy, right? Like, if you're going to use the Bible's justifications for shit, I think that you should then bite the bullet and, like, I don't think you can just then say, oh, it's wrong no matter what, right? So I do think that top left has made a mistake here because he basically, like, he got as far as to talk about numbers, right? But then you do have to kind of continue on with that, right? Like, you can't then dismiss why they went in and why they took the slaves, right? Like, I agree that it's wrong, but I don't think that then you can just decide arbitrarily, okay, now is when I'm going to put in my modern morality on it. Damn, I forgot to look at the view count. It would be interesting if it drops and you say you are married. Addicted to watch. I am wearing a ring. It's not like I hide it. OMG. Married, leave, blocked. Oh, God. Here, I'll pull up Spine for you,
You shouldn't just accept correction and keep it moving. Maybe Dr. Joshua knows a little bit more about this than you do. I don't know.
Okay, listen, let me just say this right off the bat. Dr. Josh knows vastly more about the Old Testament than I do, for one thing, okay? So there's really no contest there. But exactly what have you corrected me on, and when have I imported, things from antebellum slavery into the Old Testament? I don't see where I've done that. All I've done is I've said, hey, God commanded this to happen. You used an example of us going to Iraq for weapons of mass destruction. Tell me something, G-Man. Exactly how many young virgin girls did the United States of America take from Iraq and redistribute to the population of America?
Okay, see, this is exactly what I mean. Now it's getting confusing because now they're talking about, like, America, and they're talking about like their actions in the Iraq War and all of that. And it's like, even if you can make a coherent point out of this, you're not going to be able to really go back and tie it so much back to slavery, right? Like, or slavery in the Bible, at least. I don't know. I think that this was an unfortunate rabbit hole to go down. But okay, all right, Mr. Geek, just in case you're still here, this is where I am with the actual Spine so far. I've obviously got to change quite a lot of things. The legs, I'm completely reworking the legs because I realized I made a massive error with the feet. I forgot to give him a whole ass toe. And it's actually going to affect how he's going, like, how I'm going to have to animate it later, so I'm fixing it now. And then there's, like, this is a poop, which is supposed to be, like, just, like, one poop, but it looks like he's dancing. I have, like, a lot more ideas. It's dope. Thank you! I appreciate it. But yeah, I've been working on the wing flaps, and I'm also working on some blinks. She said feet. Watch the number curve. just wait, Addicted to Mosh. I'll walk barefoot through my setup, and then like I'll probably get like 3 views just for the feet there. You could probably just do a slight view over the second toe. Yeah, Xrox, the problem is that like here, I'll go back to Photoshop for you. The problem is that I have to essentially each toe has to be able to be bent in spine, essentially. And so, actually here, let me bring spine back up, actually, so that I can show you. So, unfortunately, it's not as simple as, like, I have to be able to bend... Whoa, hold on, that's not what I wanted to do. Fuck, did I get rid of the bones? I think I did. Okay, never mind. I'm not going to be able to show you. But basically, I have to be able to bend this toe so that it goes around and it won't, like, the lines won't go completely out of place. Assign it. Yeah, I don't know if I, like, I don't know if I broke the bones for the legs. I'll have to come and look into this, look at this later. Oh, here we go. I sent you something on Discord, my first project. Oh, you did say something earlier about a bird. My first project in AE was animating a bird. I still got PTSD from it. Can't you just hit back? This was during my last spine session, so I don't think I could just do that right now. But I will take a look at your project, Mr. Geek. Oh, cool! Oh, that's really cute. It's a little owl. Oh my god, it's really cute. Hold on, can I show it? I don't think I could easily do that. That's really cute though, Mr. Geek. Thank you for showing that to me. But yeah.
Can you tell me that exact number?
I'll give you the number. The number.
I'm just trying
I'll follow
slowly.
with the number and the statement. The number is 0. But do you know how many lives we took because of what happened to 9/11 and because of
yeah, it is really hard to get some stuff right.
The fact that we believe that there was weapons of mass destruction over there. You know how many people died in that war?
Please stay on topic.
Please stay.
Are you listening to me? How many people were killed in that war?
Please stay on topic, G-Man.
I don't see how this. I don't see how this applies.
Vagal, would you like to?
So I mean, I've been talking.
Oh, it applies because we're talking about.
No, it does. It doesn't apply. None of that applies to this conversation.
It applies because when we're talking about the level of punishment a nation deserves, we got to look at the why. Okay, and that's all throughout Scripture. If you actually pick up we talked about this before God was engineered. If you pick up the Bible and read it, you'll see what we're talking about. Okay, if a person did it, what we would call a misdemeanor, the punishment would not be all that.
We're not getting into your crazy.
Just gonna wait. G, if you'd like to finish up, or would you like to let Vagal speak?
I would like to finish. Okay, so
you're off topic, G-Man. You're off topic.
But you're on.
We're having it work.
I'm not off
Have a chili bilby, you silly dilly. Have a chilby bilby yourself, Chodole.
You are off topic. No, you're
Thanks
off
for
topic.
stopping by.
To speak, I'll show you.
No.
I want 20 seconds to explain why it's important.
No, you've went for a few long. We're gonna. Vagal, was there anything you'd like to address?
Yeah, again, maybe he hasn't gotten to it yet because we did kind of cover quite a few things. But again, when you bring up the issue of Numbers 31, you're first going to have to establish where in scriptures, let alone the issue with the Midianites, that God commanded the Israelites to steal men of the Midianite tribes, Midianite people, arbitrarily.
I don't see how steel manning the Midianite tribe. I don't see how that is really all that
God, I hope not.
imperative
That's so awkward.
To the discussion of Numbers 31 and whether or not God says, "Hey, go and take these young girls who have not been with a man, these virgins." I don't see. Maybe you can tell me
I can tell you the context.
An entire group of people have to do in order for you to slaughter them all, commit a genocide, and then take all their young virgins for yourself?
Okay.
What
you're doing?
What's the line?
What you're doing is you're not sticking on the topic of slavery. Now you're kind of slowly segueing into the issue of morality, which I'm more than prepared to talk about it. I have no problem talking about it. But the problem is that we want to kind of stick to one thing or unless you want to. This is kind of a free for all thing. We just kind of talk about whatever. But mostly within the realm of slavery, I guess. So that's fine with me.
Okay, well, first of all, Veckel, you're moving outside of the topic by trying to get me to discuss the Midianites and how they were acting and why they deserved to be slaughtered.
You brought it up. No, you brought up the issue of the Midianites. I'm responding to you.
I brought up Numbers 31 as an
the Midianites,
where God says, "Hey, go and take these young virgin girls." As far as sexual slavery goes, you wanted an instance of that actually being condoned and endorsed by God in the Bible.
But you're wrong about that. You're wrong about that. That is not an example of God arbitrarily commanding the Israelites to go enslave a group of people who are minding their
Okay, so we took like 20,000 minutes to get to the point where they're like, no, that's not a good example. You brought up an example and that's not an example. Okay, got it.
Say arbitrarily, you're importing.
That's what we're talking about.
I did not say into
did you
what
just say
I
the
actually said.
Gallus, you're being dishonest. I heard clearly what you said.
How am I being dishonest?
Because the issue was about man stealing, and you were trying to point out that there was an example of God commanding. Because I was telling you that God condemns the act of man stealing, and you said no, that's not true, and you brought up the issue of Numbers 31. Without even really knowing the context of what happened in Numbers 31. Have you read the entire book of Numbers to find out why God gave it? I think G-Man already pointed out.
I have a Bible study that airs every single Tuesday.
Oh, okay. So tell me what happened. What happened? What was the context of Numbers 31 there? Why did God give that command?
So it's the context, right?
All that I know is that the Midianites were of a different religion. They didn't like what they were doing, and so God was like, "Hey, go and kill them for retribution, for revenge, and all this other shit." But my entire point is on this issue, and then maybe we can hear what Dr. Josh has to say. But my entire point was that God, regardless of the reasons why,
context, trust me,
condoned and endorsed
context.
the
I made it the fuck
Israelites
up.
Committing a genocide on these people and taking the young virgins to integrate back into their society forcefully as sexual slaves. That's my entire point.
Okay, before Dr. Josh responds, and Dr. Josh, I want to sincerely apologize. You've been really patient throughout this whole time, but this dude here is spitting out a lot of things that are like you just ripping it to shreds, bro. And I don't know who's teaching you in your Bible study, but maybe you need to come to a real Bible study like one of ours, so that you get to know what the text really says.
Look at this man, he's so smug.
Atheistic environment of yours, where you're not even doing a Bible study. What you're doing is you're practicing atheist apologetics. So you're trying to learn how to refute the Bible in that so-called Bible study. Why don't you come over to a real Bible study? I try to have one every Sunday, and you'll learn what the scriptures say, and hopefully you'll get saved. But again, in Numbers 31, that is not God arbitrarily commanding the Israelites to go enslave the Midianites. If you said you read Numbers, the book of Numbers, as you claim you have, then you would see why God, and G-Man already pointed this out, what the reason was, okay? You can go to Numbers 25 for an example. You can see an example as to why God gave this command. All right, it's particularly with the young women there. But again, I'm looking at right now. Let me show you something. I'm looking at a book that says it's kind of faded out now. Goes to show how often I use it. It's called the New Illustrated Bible Dictionary. Okay,
cool.
And in this book is like in alphabetical order list of all the names of every person in the Bible, location in the Bible, object in the Bible, so on, act in the Bible, so on and so forth. You can find it in alphabetical order. It's a pretty good book.
This is such a floundering debate. Anyway, what is they even saying? Okay, yeah, it has been quite a flounderer, because I just realized we're like 52 minutes into it, and they still haven't really gotten anywhere other than these guys are saying that we had the classic line from this dude, right? Where he basically says he's okay with the idea that a person owning another person. And then after that, we had some kerfluffle from this guy about how man-stealing is not condoned in the Bible. Whatever man-stealing is. And so he's basically challenged them to give an example of where man-stealing was condoned in the Bible. And then there was like a whole meta discussion and a whole fucking rabbit hole where a top left dude basically like tried to bring up the numbers example. And the Midianites, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but yeah, so, and now this guy's brought out, like, a Bible deep lore book, as Ergi has put it, and I don't know where we're going from there.
Looking up the word Midianites here, and it says here, a nomadic people who were enemies of Israel, of the Israelites in the Old Testament times. The Midianites were, I'm not going to read the whole thing, so the Midianites were distantly related to the Israelites, since they sprang from Midian, one of the sons of Abraham. Okay, so I'll stop there, but there's a ton here. But again, it goes on to talk about how they were enemies of the Israelites. That means that there was conflict, there was war between these two people. So it was, again, God just not going over there, just attacking these people just because he doesn't like them. Okay, there was a war between these two nations. That's all. But you're saying that you're saying that wasn't the case. So go ahead.
Josh, have you anything you'd like to add? And if anybody has any questions, if you just want to start tagging me in the chat with the name, and I'll start pumping questions into the private chat here before coming up to the end.
Yeah. So I think we have to be careful when we talk about the Hebrew Bible from a historical critical standpoint, and when we talk about it from like the narrative itself. So, if you look at Deuteronomy 20 and 21, talking about particularly laws concerning warfare, the Hebrew Bible is very careful, I think, to show the Goyim, the nations that are around Israel, to be these horrible, wicked people. Right. I mean, I think it goes to great lengths to do that. And so when you look at something like Deuteronomy 20 and it says, there are two ways that you're going to approach your enemies. If you go to a city that is afar off, outside of the nation proper, you offer it shalom. You offer it, like a peace treaty, a vassalage. If they accept, great. They become your mas, your corvée labor. However, if they, close up their gates and they don't, take your offer of peace, then you're to kill every man, right, and take the women and the children as plunder. You're not to do this for policy though. The nations that are like in Canaan proper, because they're all under the ban. But again, that's from the narrative, from inside the text. Israel's perfectly justified in doing that, right? And they're going to great lengths to show that. So, like with this Numbers 31 thing. The Baal Peor incident in chapter 26, I think it is. Where the
Gidiox, thank you so much for the follow. I appreciate it. How's it going? We are watching well, I guess it's an older debate, but it's about slavery in the Bible. And so we're watching them flounder. These guys have had the guys on the right here have had some pretty suspect opinions, and we're currently seeing if Dr. Josh can save this somehow. Are you like a Christian? I am not a Christian. No. Also, I just realized my chat's not updated. Sorry about that. But yeah, no, I am definitely not a Christian.
The women are enticing the men to have, this illicit sexual
I'd say I'm an atheist, to be honest.
Comes into the tent and drives the spear in through the Israelite
maybe more
man
agnostic than like straight up atheist, but
the Midianite woman for committing this illicit sexual act, and he's praised, right, as being this great zealous. He's remembered throughout history. We would look at that, and I think GE, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this was your point, and I think that's what you were getting at with the Iraq thing.
Oh no! Don't bring up the rapting. No.
Inside the text.
No.
And like G-Man, you pointed this out. A child sacrifice. You look at Ezekiel, and Ezekiel's trying to go to great lengths. So child sacrifice bad. And you see this. The Canaanites are portrayed in this way, right? Is that reality? Is that historical critical? Not to the same degree, right? But that's not. Those are two different topics, I guess. But I think that's the point, that we have to make sure that we have that distinction. That, GE's point, I think, was that it doesn't matter what they did. We wouldn't do this even to very hostile enemies, right? So I guess to maybe draw a more poignant analogy, like we wouldn't take a razor blade and cut somebody to death as a punishment, right? We would kind of consider that to be inhumane. Gee, is that what you were getting at? That's why it doesn't matter?
Well, I was trying to make the point that it doesn't matter why they went there. It's just they wanted an instance in the Bible where God condoned the taking of slaves or the stealing of people.
I believe the Old Testament says slaves get the Sabbath and Jewish holidays. I mean, yeah, sure, but like the point is that slavery was endorsed in the Bible and it wasn't condemned. The top right person believes that, on the Christian side, believes that like he doesn't have a problem with the person owning another person. And top and bottom right believes that while the Bible endorses slavery, it doesn't endorse like man stealing, which I don't really know how that relates to slavery, apart from like stealing of people, I guess. But actually, hold on, maybe okay, so maybe I do understand his point then. Maybe he's trying to say that like all the slavery was like basically like the indentured servant, like you could choose to pay off your debts by being an indentured servant, and so in that way it was okay because it was all indentured servitude. I don't know, dude. I don't know.
And so it really doesn't matter, at least to me,
child sacrifice
why they
bad.
did it.
Yeah, they did.
It's just a pure fact.
Wait, hold on. Did they say child sacrifice bad? I believe it says someone in Exodus that you should not kidnap fellow man, and the punishment is the death penalty. Gidiox, it doesn't say. So we were looking at Exodus earlier. It says you can't capture fellow Israelites. It doesn't say anything, like it says your slaves are to come from the nations around you. So you can't, so obviously they did have limitations on what you could do with your slaves, right? And they had harsher punishments for if you were mistreating your fellow Israelites. But as far as other races, like other nations go, it was never, there's really no like, they really never said anything about kidnapping. Non-Jewish slaves are property for life. Yep.
The story that they did it under God's command.
I just need to put this.
I mean, unless I'm wrong, maybe you can correct me.
I've really quickly.
No, take your time, Josh. You've been quiet out of the whole lot.
Sorry, guys. I feel like I get on a roll. So, like Exodus 21:16, Deuteronomy 24:7. Deuteronomy 24:7 is one of the reasons that scholars kind of debate whether or not Exodus 21:16 is talking about just Israelites or is it talking about everybody. I tend to think it's talking about everybody, but there are good people on both sides of that issue. Proverbs 29:19-21 was the text that I was talking about in the Proverbs, where see if I can't quote it. Slaves are not corrected by mere words, and then there's a verse in there about looking at a fool, and then it says if you pamper a slave from youth, they'll become a son. So you can read Michael Fox on this. You can really read anybody on the Proverbs.
They'll become a son. That's funny.
This is what's being talked about in Exodus 21:20-21. Where it says, if a man beats his male or female slave with a wooden rod, That's not like metaphorical. That's beating him with a wooden rod.
If there is a free slave seeking refuge, you shall not give them back to their master. Yeah, but even okay, I'd have to look back and see specifically what they say about like freed slaves or runaway slaves. But I think regardless, the endorsement of slavery is still pretty explicit. And ultimately, even if they had a clause that was basically dealing with freed slaves and runaway slaves, and even if they treated them fine, I think overall, like, it's still pretty fucked that they would endorse, like, the rest of it that way, right? But yeah, maybe that's just me.
And then the last thing, Deuteronomy 23:15-16 was mentioned. I got my notes over here. So that passage where it talks about the runaway slave is most likely consensus scholarship on this, is talking about not having treaties with these foreign nations that are around. And there are reasons we can talk about that, but it's talking about foreigners that escape from their foreign slavery. They come into the land. You don't oppress them. You don't take them as slaves. You just let them live wherever they choose. So, okay. Tell me.
You have to judge something in its historic context.
Thanks, Josh. And Josh, again, man, I apologize if any of us have robbing you of
no, not at all. Not at all.
Sure, GDX. But I think that, and I think, I know you weren't here for this earlier, right? I think if you're in the position of these guys here on the left, if you're in their position, right, you do have to take historical context into account, right? But there's two things for me that stop me from entirely saying, yeah, let's completely take it in context. Even in the historical context, I would say it's not okay, right? Like, I struggle to see how someone as all-powerful as Yahweh would essentially endorse, like, a lot of things that happen in the Old Testament, right? Essentially, it doesn't make sense to me that this is the will of a loving and all-powerful God. It makes sense to me in the context of Yahweh was the Israelite war god, and that I can understand, right? And Yahweh was the war god for the Israelites, right? He didn't become the one true God until like way later. Like, Israelites were pretty polytheistic. So, you know, I guess to me, especially the way that modern Christians try to contextualize this is they say that it was back then when we had a different covenant and, you know, like, you know, I don't see how that tracks with like an all-powerful and loving God, right? Put aside all of the that's not even to mention of all the things, all the other fucked up shit that Yahweh basically endorses and or commands, right? But the second thing I was going to say was that for me personally, I'm not in their position. I don't have to sit there and accept the historical context, especially because, you know, if you're arguing for slavery in the Bible, especially if you're trying to extol like how the Bible is relevant today, you know, I don't know. It's pretty suspect. I think your historical context is going to have to be a lot, like, I don't know. It's some context, sure, but if this is like an objective prescription, then it shouldn't need a whole lot of contextual like justification for it to seem acceptable, right? And keep in mind, it's the Bible. It's not supposed to be just like acceptable. It's supposed to be something that we aspire to or are inspired by or look up to in some way. So that's my personal opinion, I guess. Are you in sort of the Destiny adjacent debate sphere on Twitch? Only in the sense that I'm an orbiter of an orbiter. Like I come from Heem's community, if you know Heem. I suppose you could say that Heem sort of comes out of the Destiny sphere, but I don't know if I'm convinced of that either, because Heem's more of a variety streamer, and I guess so am I. I wouldn't really say I'm a debate streamer. I do debates, I do sometimes go on Wix stuff, but I only usually try to stick to things that I actually know something about. Best argument ever, I just need to convince everyone to slap bitches, then we can slap bitches and say just, well, historical context. Okay, listen, after this, I am absolutely going to show y'all some non-stamp collector stuff, because y'all are just going to have to watch this with me.
Again, I think, GE, I think you're being, again, disingenuous with the text there. The argument is, I said,
oh my God,
that God condemns, and we can clearly show you scripture after scripture. Sorry about the noise in the background, it's my daughter. The Bible clearly condemns the act of man stealing. You then say, no, it doesn't. You then give me an example in, you tried to give me an example in Numbers 31. And you said, it doesn't matter what reason that these people are being held captive by the Israelites. The fact of the matter is that God is allowing this to happen. But see, that's where you're being disingenuous. Because again, we clearly show you that God condemns the act of man stealing. But before that, I also told you one of the instances where God permitted or condoned slavery, and that was in the time of war. So if you see the act of man stealing in this case, that's not God contradicting himself. That is them taking, forget the word is, I think it's tribute. When you're
oh
in
my
battle
God, tribute
against your enemies, instead
He's
of
gonna say
wiping
it's fine
them all
because
out
it's a
off
tribute.
the face of the earth, you spare the invulnerable, or the vulnerable, so on and so forth.
No.
In most cases. Okay, now yes, I know you're gonna try to quote Deuteronomy 7, 1 Samuel 15, and Numbers 31. I know. Okay, but that's not always the case. This was always and only in an act of war. It was never because God is up in heaven, bored to tears, and he wanted to play a game of battleship with humans here down on earth. Okay, it was an act of war. That's it.
No, I'm sorry, but I feel like Josh handled the whole man stealing thing. Maybe I don't know what verse you're talking about. It would be awesome if you could give me like what verse you're talking about when you're talking about it forbids man stealing, because what Josh just covered was how for like slaves from foreign lands escaping into Israelite land, they couldn't be taken as slaves in that instance. If that's the part that you're talking about, I mean,
oh wait,
Josh has already gone over that part,
no.
and it just seems like it went one in one ear and out the other. What verse specifically?
You doing Bible studies and you don't know this? Okay, here,
I don't have the Bible memorized.
Deuteronomy 24:7 says, if a man is caught kidnapping any of his countrymen of the sons of Israel, and he deals with him violently or sells him, and then that thief shall die. Then that thief shall die. Okay?
Yes, thank you. That's the exact.
I'm not done. I'm not done. That's 1 Timothy chapter 1. This is the New Testament. 1 Timothy chapter 1, verses 9 and 10. Realizing the fact that the law is not made for a righteous person, but for those who are lawless and rebellious. Okay, then he goes on to make a list. For the ungodly and sinners, for the unholy and profane, and kidnappers or man stealers. Okay, that's 1 Timothy. And I forget what this passage is. I want to say this is in Exodus 21. He who kidnaps a man, whether he sells him or is found, or he is found in his possession, shall surely be put to death. Why are you putting this person to death? Because he kidnapped a man.
Jesus.
Okay, he kidnapped him. So that is a clear example of God. Huh?
In the passage,
it doesn't matter.
I didn't get the verse.
A man.
No. I didn't get the very first verse that you that
Oh, that was
also, I know y'all can't see the chat, but the chat is like losing it. They're like, this makes even less sense.
I mean 24/7.
Deuteronomy 24:7.
Yep.
Where is the person from in that verse?
Doesn't matter. It says amen.
No. Deuteronomy
24/7. Go ahead, look at
24.
I want to look at it too.
If a man is caught kidnapping, okay, it doesn't say one particular man.
Hold on.
My God, I can't. Let me say
this. Let me point. Deuteronomy
24/7. Go ahead.
Deuteronomy 24/7. All right, let's see. Let's take a look. Okay, here we go. If someone is caught kidnapping a fellow Israelite and treating or selling them as a slave, the kidnapper must die. Okay, this makes no sense. This is talking about the Israelites. No, I thought this was going to at least refer to fucking like everybody. Apparently not. Apparently it's just the Israelites. My God. Okay. All right.
Look at
24/7.
All right. I see how it is.
If a man is caught kidnapping, okay, it doesn't say one particular man.
Why are you trying to logic this?
Let me say this. Let me point this out. Very
well. I honestly thought that I don't know what I thought. This is definitely shooting myself in the foot here. Yeah.
Specifically,
right?
if someone
what you're gonna say
is caught kidnapping,
I need crackers for this. This is what I need.
Fellow Israelite
and treating or selling them as a slave, the kidnapper must die. Let me repeat that.
Now let me stop. I knew you were going to go there. I knew you were going to go there.
I knew you were going to go there.
I knew you were going to go there. Now, folks. Now, G-Man, do you realize what fallacy this guy just committed?
Unfortunately,
this is the argument for silence fallacy, because what he's doing is that he's asserting
the what fallacy?
Yeah, you go ahead, put your hands in your face all you want, because you just got caught.
Wait. The what fallacy?
This is the argument for silence fallacy, because what he's doing is that he's asserting. Oh yeah, you go ahead, put your hands in your face all you want, because you just got caught.
I didn't say anything
about
silence. I literally
no. What you're doing? No. I'm gonna explain to you and the audience why you committed this fallacy and how you did it. I read to you verse 7 of Deuteronomy 24. It says, "If a man is caught kidnapping any of his countrymen of the sons of Israel, okay, then he shall surely die." You then jump to the conclusion and say, so this is only pertaining to Israelites, not to people outside of Israel. That's an argument from silence there. You're saying that therefore, because it doesn't make mention of anybody outside of Israel, therefore God permitted man stealing of people outside of the nation.
Oh my God, no. That's what you're... Okay. Holy shit, this is actually brain dead as shit. If someone is caught kidnapping a fellow Israelite and treating or selling them as a slave, the kidnapper must die. If you take this to mean, especially alongside the other shit that talks about the actual what's the word? Wow. Alright, I'm just gonna play this while I find the thing.
Slaves built America. Slaves, this is your song. Thank you. Slaves. Thank you. Slaves. Thank you. Slaves. Slaves, this is your song. Thank you. Slaves.
Okay, that was perfect. Okay. So, slavery was permissible in blah 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 when you buy a male Hebrew slave. Okay, let's find the protection against permanent enslavement also did not apply to foreigners. Men taken in war were considered plunder and became the perpetual property of their owners. permanent enslavement. Slaves could also be purchased from surrounding nations, and nothing protected them against perpetual slavery. The other protections afforded Hebrew slaves did apply to foreigners, but this must have been a small comfort. Okay. If you have a slavery situation where they're making a very specific delineation between how you're supposed to treat Hebrew slaves versus how you're supposed to treat foreign slaves, then it stands to reason that if you say something like this and you specify that it applies to a fellow Israelite, then it is reasonable to assume that it does not apply to the remainder of the slaves, especially if the remainder of the slaves were subject to things like permanent enslavement. Right? God damn.
You're trying to say, right? Is that what you're trying to say? I mean, that's why you got excited and say, fellow countrymen. Come on, that's why you brought it up, right?
Also, he's so smug. He's trying so hard.
And okay. I didn't say anything. All I said was it quite literally says if someone is caught capping a fellow Israelite. If I said if you kidnap a fellow American, how could you in any kind of dimension think that I'm talking about a French person?
You're committing the fallacy again. Again, when I read to you, what about the other passages? You're just going to flat out just disregard the other passages that I read out.
No. We were just handling the first passage. I mean, honestly, I don't. I do remember you bringing up the kidnapper, the slave thing in the New Testament, and that's actually talking about.
Jidiox, I do have to look up I did see something about Canaanite slaves because I think that if I'm not mistaken, wasn't Canaan. Okay, now I'm actually Canaanites. I mean, these were the people they were conquered, right? But I don't know if there was any rules like this. I'm looking it up. Okay. Here, we're looking at Wikipedia. We're actually learning today, okay? Okay, Canaanites. Maybe I shouldn't have gone to Wikipedia. One set for Hebrew slaves and a second set for Canaanite slaves. Well, Canaanite... Okay, so Canaanite was just everybody else, basically. Hebrew slaves were treated as servants and were released after 6 years of service or the occurrence of a jubilee year. I don't see anything so far about conversion. The Torah forbids the return of runaway slaves who escape from their foreign land and their bondage and arrive in the land of Israel. So that's any slaves that escape to Israel, not slaves that run away from Israel. Jidiox, do you have a link? Do you have a link or a source for that, if you don't mind? Because I'm interested in Jewish conversion of slaves. Okay. Okay, hold on. Thank you for the link. Okay. A Jewish slave owner, however, must get the non-Jewish slave to agree to undergo a conversion process. A person who cannot convince his slave to accept conversion to Judaism can allow him to live in his house for 12 months in the hope that during that time he will abandon his pagan beliefs and be willing to accept Judaism. If he refuses to do so, he must be sold to a non-Jew. I mean, I don't know if that makes it any better. You know, it makes it slightly nicer that they're giving them a way to, like, hey, by the way, if you just convert to our religion, then you won't get treated like all of our other slaves. But apparently, according to this talks about selling off your slave if they don't accept Judaism. So I don't know if that's any better, to be honest. So it's on the coaching him. What is that, parse? I'm gonna look it up. I have returned. Welcome back. We're currently molding. Because people have said some dumb shit. It's a relative improvement to a potential lifelong servitude with no way out. Sure, Didiox. That's definitely better than permanent slavery, sure. Should tell people to sub if you enjoy. Yeah, chat, if you're here and you're enjoying my stream and you haven't followed, well, first of all, what's wrong with you? Second of all, it's September. That means that you pay less money to give me the same amount of money. Okay? I'm a kind slave master. I promise. I'll be nice to you. I'll give you rewards. Okay? I'll let y'all free. If I ever stop streaming, I'll let y'all free. I won't keep y'all as indentured servants forever. Now, if you like my content so much that you don't want to give up your enlightened chatter's, status, you can come to me and tell me, hey, I want to be your chatter forever, and I will take you to the doorpost, and I'll put a hole through your ear, and you'll be my chatter forever. So yes, sub if you like slavery. How's that? Also, it's even better if you do use the Bezos box, because, you know, we gotta tell Bezos to side. Let's send here this bottom-friendly talk. True. Alright, let's finish this up. Jesus.
Illegally obtaining a slave, but also in that particular context, considering the context of the Old Testament, this would be somebody that's caught enslaving fellow Christians illegally.
It doesn't matter. Again, whether you're kidnapping them or you're stealing, or it's considered stealing under the man's property, it's still illegal. It was condemned by God. And again, you can get excited if you want. You can get excited you want and think that's, one score for the atheists because this one passage. But remember, first of all, I'm the one that brought up Deuteronomy 24:7, not you. Secondly, I brought up three passages that condemned the act of man stealing, Deuteronomy 24:7 being one of them, not you. You didn't bring them up, I did. Okay.
What does that matter? Why does it matter who brings it up? What's the second passage?
It matters because, again, you can't just go to the context of one passage throughout all of Scripture and say that validates your position. No, it does not. I clearly showed you two other passages apart from Deuteronomy 24, where God condemns the act of man stealing. So you haven't shown us again any example where God allows outside of the realm of war, where God allowed the Israelites or commanded the Israelites to just go arbitrarily take command or steal and enforce slavery upon another nation that they had no conflict with. If you have that example, I would like to see it.
You can purchase slaves from the nations around you. That's literally in the Bible. Now, what was the second verse that you brought up? What was the second verse that you brought up?
That's not man stealing, he says.
Stealing.
Oh my God.
Okay, so I got one thing I want to say.
Oh, wow. Dude,
I thought something I want to say real quick.
Wait, G-Man, before you respond, I got to ask GE. GE, can you give me an invite to one of these Bible studies?
No, that is a Bible study that both me and my wife do, and we post it on our channel. So no, you can't come to our private Bible study.
It's private, all right.
Anyway, I got a Bible verse.
Private interpretation.
I have a Bible
private interpretation. Got him. Got him, chat.
You didn't think it is, but it's in the Ten Commandments, Exodus 20:15.
Have you ever seen Aaron Ra's debates on religion? I find him quite sufferable person. Aaron Ra sounds familiar, but I don't remember who that is. Is that an old? Hold on. Let me look this person up. I'm sorry for the. Was he an atheist? Okay, I think I remember this. I remember seeing this guy around. I don't think I ever watched any of his stuff. He's a guy that looks like a wizard. I've watched some other people like Matt Dillahunty and like I think like didn't Cosmic Skeptic do quite a bunch of like atheist stuff back in the day, and you know, I think I was more in the non-stamp collector side of the YouTube atheism. I could probably dig up some of the old channel, and in fact, after this debate, I am gonna pull up some non-stamp collector stuff because that stuff slaps to this day. We are gonna do that after I get done with this, but I don't think I ever actually watched this guy.
Not Dr. Josh, GE. Leviticus chapter 19, verse 11, where it says, "You should not steal, you should not deal falsely, you should not lie to one another." All right? Like, honestly, are we really having this conversation, dude? Like, seriously.
How does that apply to
you said you wanted a Bible verse on where it said that where God said you can't steal. That's what you said earlier.
No.
Exodus chapter 20, verse 15, it says, "Thou shalt not steal." Like, is that a serious question? You're lucky you were talking to Veckel, because I would have gave you the 10-second punish and then walked away, dude. Like, seriously.
You haven't walked away yet, G-Man.
Exodus 20,
you're glad you're lucky you were talking to him. I would have busted your balls and walked away.
What part of that don't you understand, though?
Oh, you said that you were just going to school me in 10 seconds and then walk out.
I did.
Why aren't you stepping,
G-Man? You did school me.
You just got finished asking the question. Oh, where does God say that you can't steal?
The fucking fire, dude.
Thou shalt not steal. Any more questions
you have? It does not say you cannot steal.
I will go to your Bible study. It's clear you don't know what you're talking about, dude. Come on. Dr. Josh, one of these days, I would like a one-on-one with you because you're clearly more educated about this and you know more about the topic. But Gallus, you are not an authority.
God said thou shalt not steal another man's slaves,
Scripture, dude. And you have to embarrass yourself today. But Dr. Josh, I ain't got nothing to say about you. I'm surprised by that. But Godless Engineer, dude, you embarrass yourself today, dude. Seriously.
I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna maybe do round up and the statements.
This is debate,
bro. At least 10 questions.
This is Christian debate, bros.
So thank you both. Thank everybody for coming. Josh, since again you've been very quiet, if you want to give a
this is what y'all support. Y'all support Christian debate bros. Y'all support debate pervertism.
This will probably be my last term talking to you guys. Josh talks way too much.
This is what it's like when I did things with Skylar too. I just I go quiet. That's my fault. No, I mean I think the important thing is to recognize usually when I have these conversations, I'm having to fight to try to get everybody on the same page to say, yes, there's slavery in the Hebrew Bible. And it's in the legal sections, right? I don't feel like we had to do a lot of disagreement about that tonight. I mean, maybe I just missed it, but
maybe I just missed it.
So, yeah, I mean, I think when it comes to, well, maybe this is yeah, you know what? I'll just wait. That's fine. That's good, because I know you say you get a lot of questions, and
It's fine, Josh. No, it's fine. If you've got something to say,
no, okay. Go ahead. No, go ahead. Well, I'm sure it'll come up.
Okay, Vakel, is there anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, I would say this also. And Dr. Josh, again, I appreciate your patience, man. I apologize if I spoke over you in any way. And if you want to, have a part 2 of this, I'd be more.
I love how they're like, oh, we're gonna talk nicely to the guy who didn't say much the whole
and
debate.
G, this is for you for your next Bible study. I think the reason why, with regard to Exodus 21, the rules that God commands the Israelites in Exodus 21 and Leviticus 25, I think it's important for you to know why. See, I'm talking to an atheist here. You already have a biased interpretation, but I'll say this anyway.
You're talking to 2 atheists, my dude.
I think it's important for you to understand why God gave these particular commands that we see listed throughout, for example, in Exodus 21. It's because of passages such as Jeremiah 17:9, which says the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked, who can know it? It's because of passages such as David saying in Psalms 51 that he was born and he was shapen in iniquity. Okay? It's because of passages like Romans 3, which says that there's none that does right. There's none that does good. There's none that seek after God. Okay? All these are the passages that talk clearly about the depravity of man, that Romans 3:23 says we have all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. Okay, this is a fact. Okay, even if you don't believe in the Bible, you know that mankind is inherently capable of doing things that are contrary to, good standards, good morals.
Chat, just because men can do evil things, that means that we deserve slavery. That's what he's saying.
I'm not saying that we're totally depraved, that's all we can do, but I'm saying
he deserved to have his
the reason why
his
God
race
gave
be
these commands in
for
Exodus
generations
21,
and generations,
for example, is because of the depravity of man. Had not God stepped in and gave these specific commands on how to treat the slaves, the man in his depraved mind, in his depraved state, would do far worse than what you guys are accusing God of commanding the Israelites to do in Exodus 21.
No way, dude.
A perfect example of that is antebellum, the transatlantic slave trade. I'm sure we've all heard the horror stories about slaves, being tortured and beaten, and forced to do all kinds of raped and all of these kinds of things, right? But you don't see God commanding any of those things that we saw during those times, okay? What you see in the Bible is God commanding the Israelites to do very extremely humane and civil things towards these other people who are slaves, who are humans, okay? There's penalties for even killing them. So again, I'll just wrap it up. Again, the reason why God put these laws in there is because
the amount of
had he not put these laws in place, man in his depraved state would do far worse. If they had no standards and nothing to be held accountable to, they would do far worse. I can say much more, but I'll stop there.
I have to say that it's a pretty weak God that can specifically point out how bedazzled his throne room has to be, but yet cannot say do not own another person. I do
look at this man in the corner
morally abhorrent to own another person, and we've collectively said this as a society, that owning another person is abhorrent. So the entire topic tonight was whether or not the Bible, and therefore God, condones or endorses slavery. And we've sufficiently proven between Josh and my screaming, Josh wasn't screaming, I was, that God has not only commanded that, slaves be taken forcefully from other nations, but also his laws that he lays down in the Old Testament show that you can go to other nations and purchase slaves. You can buy slaves from other nations. And you can also, and God also does command you to forcefully take slaves on occasion.
Okay, I am gonna. I think. Oh no, wait.
The
we
whole
have only
man,
okay,
the man stealing, the kidnapping thing is a fellow Israelite. You can't do that to a fellow Israelite. Fellow Israelites were put into debt slavery, which can be just as bad as the chattel slavery that is endorsed and condoned by the God of the Old Testament. So, I'll let Josh go now.
Or G-Man.
I think I have my turn.
We'll let G-Man finish up. We'll let G-Man finish up. Then we've got a couple of questions we want to fly through.
Are these closing statements or whatever? All right, Dr. Josh, I'd like to thank you for agreeing having this conversation. Godless Engineer obviously is here too, so that's a bonus. I'd like to thank both of you for doing this. The only thing I really got to say about this is it's really important to actually read your Bible. It's really important to read this in context and actually know what it says before you debate. I believe that, and I'm not. This is not towards Dr. Josh. I have a criticism for him a little bit later, but it's very important to read this and to be able to understand what is being said before you actually criticize it. Okay. The reason why is because I've shown with one Bible verse that stealing is wrong in the Bible, and that would include man stealing, and you can't do that. I've also shown that Godless Engineer has a very biased opinion.
It really is cool because yeah, you have a rule that says don't steal, but you have also a rule that says your slaves are to come from the nations around you. And there are specific verses that say the people you capture, if you don't kill them, they are to be taken as slaves. That is stealing. You're stealing them from their home. You're stealing them from their family. How is this justified? Just because you have one thing that says you can't steal. Also, we already know that people from other nations were not considered the same as the Israelites. And specifically take the women who hadn't had sex yet and divide them up the same as the cattle. Yep, that's what we saw when we looked at one of the links that basically went into they were divided up right alongside the literal cattle. You just need to study the Bible as much as G-Man, then you'd understand. True, Orgy. True.
About slavery in the Bible, and
damn,
doesn't even know how to break this down or talk about what actually happened in here. I thought Dr. Josh's opening statement was a lot more intellectual.
Too bad. One better read the Gathas. What is the Gathas?
Did read it.
Jesus.
I don't agree with all of the assessments he made. Obviously, some of them I do, which is why I would like to have another conversation. The Godless Engineer, I would like to end with this.
Interesting.
You need
those Zoroastrian.
I mean, I'm telling you this as a black man living in the United States. Okay, obviously, I'm not that crazy about slavery either. Okay, but they just like fire can burn somebody and do harm. Fire can do a lot of good. All right. So slavery in of itself is not a bad thing. It's how people are treated as slaves that you and I both agree is the issue. Did God condone
oh my God, he's coming back out. The bangers chat.
On how to treat your slaves in the Bible? Absolutely. There's no issue with that. The real debate here is whether or not it was moral or not. That's the real issue. Okay? So what I would recommend you do is to try to, I know I laugh and I act like something of a fool on here a little bit, but in all seriousness, you really need to figure out what it is that you have a problem with in the scripture and write down what your problems are, like Dr. Josh did, and then learn how to articulate it so that I can get a better understanding of where you're coming from so that I can help you come to a better understanding of what the Bible says. Help me help you. And Dr. Josh, again, I'm impressed because I thought you was going to sound like Godless Engineer personally. I know you wrote a book on the topic. I don't agree. We're very good.
Godless engineer is like.
I at least understand where you're coming from. Godless engineer, you was all over the place. Let me get to the questions, please.
Jesus. God damn. What a fucking trip. Hey, heathens. What did you think of this debate? Was I as unprepared as blah blah blah? Let me know. G-Man has the intelligence of a wet rock. Dr. Josh was the only qualified person for this discussion and never had a chance to speak. The best way to convince 2 black men to be okay with slavery is to turn them into Christians. Convince them that they were predestined to be slaves. Hey, what's up, MDH? We just got done watching this absolute brain rot of a debate between 2 Christians and 2 atheists. And the Christians were these 2 black guys who, both of them, unironically, were basically like, it's okay for a human to own another human. And we deserve slavery because of how fucked we are as men, as people, and it's by the grace of God that we got laws so that we would treat our slaves better. I've heard people defend slavery in the Bible before, but never bite that bullet. Yeah, I look like I'm traumatized. I'm just like, it's just like sinking in. We watched like an hour of it, and it's been an hour and a half. What is this? I hope it's eye bleach. I need some eye bleacher out now. Oh wait, hold on. I didn't actually copy the thing. Oops. How are you doing, MDH? I'm so glad you're here. Here, let me see what this is. Slavery. Oh, slavery in the early caliphate. Ooh, medieval history documentary. Do we have time for this? Fuck. Fuck. I wanted to... No, you know what? We'll watch this. Hopefully it's a little less like, hopefully it's a little less like, brain rot than the other one. Oh, this is Muslim. Okay, Crusades. Okay. Okay, Turkification. Okay. There is always time for slavery. Okay, as long as we have time at the end for a quick non-stamp collector, then I think I'm fine. Wait, why am I searching for YouTube? Non-stamp collector... slavery. 10 minutes. Okay, we can squeeze it in. We can get through it, okay? This trip has been held for multiple reasons. Now in a hotel room chilling. Oh, so you're not back yet? You're not back home yet? Alright, we'll watch this. We'll kind of make this a more chill, like not so brain rot thing, and then we'll watch one more thing of brain rot, but it's funny brain rot, okay? So let's go ahead.
Just like in the rest of the ancient world, slavery was a common practice in Arabia centuries before the coming of Islam. Sources tell about slaves being brought to Arabia from the Middle East, India, and other countries.
It'll be good to have you back.
But the biggest source of slaves in pre-Islamic Arabia were African slaves from present-day Ethiopia, Eritrea, Mozambique, Kenya, and so on. Old Arabic poetry tells about dark-skinned foreign slaves called Habash. Slavery persisted after Islam became the law of the land in Arabia, and expanded with the territorial advance of the Caliphate as well. How did slavery in Arabia transform following the ascent of Islam? What kind of work were the slaves forced to do in the territory of the Caliphate? In this episode, Kings and Generals is going to talk about slavery in the Caliphate. Medieval soldiers were enticed with promises of war spoils, life-changing treasures that may or may not actually materialize, which they may or may not live to spend. It's risk-reward. And we've got an experience that captures this idea with our sponsor, Expedition Agartha.
Oh no!
It's a blend of first-person medieval combat focused on melee.
Here we go.
Freely given and lost without too early access, and you.
Goodbye.
Slavery in Arabia goes back to the pre-Islamic Jahiliyyah, ignorance period.
He says he's doing it
Arabia had several sources of slave supply, and the largest among them were conflicts. Arabs would raid bordering Byzantine and Persian provinces for the purposes of getting war booty and slaves, and the Ajami, Iraqi slaves, were prominent among them. Intertribal conflict within Arabia would result in the victorious side taking the surviving members of the losing tribe as prisoners, but most of them were ransomed before they could be turned into slaves. But the majority of slaves were imported from Africa. Mecca was a major trading center of the region at the time, and trade caravans, including those which transported African slaves, were going through Mecca. Arab slave owners would purchase them in Mecca. Also, raiding parties would attack caravans and capture slaves for themselves or sell them later.
Jeez.
There were two types of slaves, purchased ones and slaves born in the house of their master. Arabia's climate and terrain limited the scope of work in which slaves could be used, but they would work as servants of rich Arabs, as shepherds, and as caravan guides. Female slaves would also be used for sexual purposes. In theory, Islam saw a natural state of a human being as being free, stated as al-asa huwa il-hurriya. Islam brought some limitations and regulations to slavery in Arabia, but slavery was such an ordinary phenomenon for that age.
I think I might have goaded him into doing it because of what I wrote in mod chat. What did you write in mod chat? Now I need to see it real quick before we move on. What you write? Just this morning. Oh my god, okay. Just this morning she said, she said, Ed MDH, I know you think that maybe one day he will stream 10 days in a row, but honestly, I don't think that is gonna happen. Oh my god. He said that's just uncalled for.
Along with being a fundamental element of Arab society, that it was not possible to outright prohibit slavery. All of the Arab elite, including the Prophet, owned slaves. But at the same time, there are numerous Quranic verses and hadiths describing the emancipation of slaves by the Prophet Muhammad, such as Bilal, who became the first muezzin, caller for prayer in the history of Islam, and Zayd, Muhammad's stepson. During his farewell sermon, Muhammad said, "An Arab has no superiority over a non-Arab, nor a non-Arab has any superiority over an Arab.
Interesting.
Also, a white has no superiority over black, nor a black has any superiority over white, except by piety and good action." Historians Neusner and Son argue that prohibiting slavery in the context of 7th century Arabia apparently would have been as useful.
That's more woke than the fucking biblical slavery, but maybe that's just me.
As prohibiting poverty. It would have reflected a noble ideal, but would have been unworkable on an immediate basis without establishing an entirely new socio-economic system. And its recommendation that slaves be freed is on the same plane as its recommendation that the poor be clothed and the hungry be fed. Thus, slavery was not prohibited in Islam, but the ascension of the Islamic Caliphate led to some reforms in terms of treatment of slaves, their release, and amended procedures related to enslavement. The Quran stated that a slave Muslim is better than a free pagan, that it was better to marry a slave Muslim female than a free pagan. Islam barred Muslims from enslaving other Muslims, called for humane and kind treatment of slaves, and prohibited killing them. The Abbasid Caliph al-Mutasim freed 8,000 of his slaves on his deathbed as manumission was encouraged by Islam. A child born to a freeman father and a slave mother was considered free.
Oh,
this
interesting.
Slave woman could not be.
Okay, how is this slavery already sounding way more based than the Christian slavery? Jesus.
Sold off anymore and would be set free upon the death of the master. The state prohibited freemen from selling their children into slavery as a punishment for debt or a crime. Despite this, the slave population increased due to purchase through military campaigns, commercial purchase, procreation of slaves, and interstate agreements, where the caliphate insisted on payment of tribute through the import of slaves. People of the book, Jews and Christians, were safe from being enslaved, but Muslims could purchase Jewish and Christian slaves, in case they had become slaves before their purchase, but it was allowed to turn pagans into slaves, even if they would decide to convert to Islam. Moreover, there was
Okay, that's not based. That's not based. Even if you convert to Islam, you don't stop being a slave? Okay then, alright.
Distinction in terms of enslavement between Dar al-Islam, the realm of Islam, and Dar al-Harb, the realm of war. Dar al-Islam was the territory where Islam was prevalent, and therefore the laws of peacetime applied, while Dar al-Harb was the territory dominated by non-believers, who did not recognize Allah and Muhammad as his prophet, therefore a peacetime law did not apply there. This loophole was used to import slaves who were already Muslims, or for the castration of slaves, a practice which was prohibited by Islam. Although good treatment of slaves was encouraged by Islam, slaves were essentially rightless. Their testimonies were not admitted at judicial proceedings. Offense against slaves required half of the punishment envisaged for the same offense against freemen. Slaves were not allowed to enter into a contract, and so on. The death rate of slaves was quite high, particularly among those employed for plantation and mining slavery. On the other hand, the vast majority of slaves lived under better conditions than, for instance, their counterparts in ancient Greece and Rome. Masters were obliged to provide slaves with medical attention, shelter, and support in old age, and were prohibited from overworking them. They could be forced by Islamic courts to emancipate a slave whom they had mistreated. In some cases, slaves had a contractual right to buy their freedom over time, or be emancipated upon the master's death. The expansion of the Caliphate and its military successes were the primary sources of slave supply. People of different races and beliefs, such as Assyrians, Copts, Persians, Nubians, Berbers, Indians, Greeks, Turks, Slavs, etc., were enslaved by the Caliphate. Slaves were acquired from all over the Middle East, Egypt, Iran, the Caucasus, North Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, Central Asia, India, Spain, Central and Eastern Europe, even China and Southeast Asia. A significant part of the slave supply of Arabia, even before Islam, was from Africa, with countries like Ethiopia and Nubia being the most prominent in this regard. This continued after the ascension of Islam too, and historian Yosef ben Yochanan argues that jihads were brought to Africa as early as the year 640 AD. The expansion of the Caliphate into Egypt and Sub-Saharan Africa, into what the Arabs called Balad al-Sudan, the land of the blacks, enabled a higher supply of African slaves into the empire.
Jeez.
This supply was both from military conquest and booty, along with treaties signed with African states, where they agreed to supply the Caliphate with slaves annually. Moreover, Arabs set up slave trading posts along the southeastern coast of the Indian Ocean, including the archipelago of Zanzibar. This paved the way for the major African slave trade to the Caliphate. Black African slaves were sold in slave markets in Egypt, South Arabia, and the Maghreb. Historian Paul Lovejoy estimates that close to 10 million Africans were shipped out as slaves to Arabia and the Caliphate. According to him, every year 5,000 Africans were brought to Arabia as slaves between the years 650 and 1600. Luis Felipe Jalencastro argues that 8 million African people were sold or sent into slavery through the Oriental and Trans-Saharan slavery routes between the 8th and 19th centuries. Historians might disagree on the numbers, going as high as 30 million, but the truth is that millions of Africans were forced to live and work as slaves in the Caliphate. The slave trade from Africa to Arab countries continued right until the beginning of the 20th century. For instance, slavery in Saudi Arabia was formally abolished as late as 1962, in Oman in 1970. Africa had become a pragmatic choice for slave supply of the Caliphate, as towards the 8th century, most of the borders of the Arab Caliphate had already become more or less stable. There were fewer expansionist wars, which meant there were fewer slaves imported. By then, the Eastern Roman Empire and the Frankish kingdom bordering the Iberian possessions of the Caliphate had become strong enough to oppose further expansion of the Caliphate. Moreover, they were people of the book, and enslavement of Christians was a legally problematic matter. For instance, in the 9th century, the Egyptian Christians rebelled against the Caliphate, and following their defeat, many of them were sold as slaves in Damascus. According to the historian Adam Metz, this was widely criticized in the Caliphate and was considered absolutely illegal. In contrast, sub-Saharan Africa did not have a political entity strong enough to oppose the caliphate, and it had maintained and enhanced its position as one of the major sources of slave supply for the caliphate.
Jeez.
Unlike the slaves in the Americas, where they were mostly forced to work in manual labor jobs, such as working on plantations and mining, in the caliphate, slaves were used in a wider scope of jobs. In the Americas, slaves were a major tool of production, while in the caliphate they were mostly used in service jobs or for military purposes. Slaves worked as servants, nurses, concubines, entertainers, eunuchs, business assistants, craftsmen, builders, and soldiers. There were also types of slave jobs
so I'm assuming
which
that's
existed
like,
in the Jahiliyyah
I think
period,
Beans is so low slavery now,
by
she looks convinced.
such as masters forcing female slaves into prostitution for their personal material gain. Some of the jobs, particularly being a soldier or taking part in administration and business, allowed for upward social mobility for slaves. And
okay, but that being said, take the slavery pill. Okay, but that being said, this, from what I'm hearing, they're saying that they did have social mobility in the caliphate. Jesus Christ. They have more social mobility than blacks in America. That's what this is saying to me, okay? I'm sorry. If I'm believing this, it's just what it says. I'm not advocating for it.
Slaves are the perfect example of the former. In general, slaves working in domestic and urban settings were not subject to overworking and cruelty. And the problem with the Arab historiography of that period is that it's very much focused on urban Arabia, not only with regard to the issue of slavery, but in general. Slaves working in rural settings are largely overlooked, despite being subject to the hardest living conditions among the slaves of Arabia. They were mostly employed in agriculture, mining, and the drainage of marshes. These were mostly black slaves, who were more prone to being overworked, being subject to cruelty, and living in worse conditions, often crammed in dozens in small spaces.
Jeez.
It is said that no slave lived for longer than 5 years in the Saharan salt mines. Extremely hard living and working conditions existed in cotton and sugar fields.
Fucked.
The slave labor of the black slaves, Zanj as the Arabs called them, in the marshlands and salt flats of southern Iraq, are among the most vivid examples of cruelty against slaves in the caliphate. But white slaves were brought to the caliphate as well, and were mostly employed in the military, as business associates, and for entertainment of the Arab elite. This demonstrated the existence of racial discrimination in the caliphate, despite the fact that Islam considered all human beings equal regardless of the color of their skin. Most of the white slaves were Slavic and Turkic. Slavs were considered more expensive than Turks, and were brought into the caliphate through Germany to Spain. Prague was also one of the centers of the slave trade from Europe to the caliphate.
Really?
Meanwhile, Turkic slaves were mostly sold in the slave market of Samarkand. A good-looking white slave woman would cost 1,000 dinars. In some cases, this cost would go as high as 10,000 dinars. In contrast, a good-looking black slave woman would cost 150 to 300 dinars.
Oh no!
Black male slaves would cost even less. Their purchase was around 25 to 30 dinars.
What the fuck?
A special category of slaves in the caliphate were those specialized in arts and entertainment, who were educated by their masters and then sold to the Arab elite for massive sums. 1,000 to 2,000 dinars was the average cost of an entertainer. In 937, the de facto ruler of the caliphate, Ibn Raik, purchased a popular female singer for 14,000 dinars. While Islam alleviated the suffering of slaves and placed certain restrictions on their abuse and encouraged good treatment of slaves, their lives were extremely hard. Slaves working in agriculture, mining, and construction had a shorter lifespan and were more susceptible to ill treatment. One of the sites of cruel and inhumane treatment of slaves.
What about a femboy slave? Not a very comprehensive video. Yeah, blame Parse. He's the one who provided this to us. Okay.
Slaves was the Basra marshlands in southern Iraq, where black slaves were forced to work under horrible conditions. They rebelled against the caliphate in 869 and would trouble the state for more than 2 decades. In our upcoming episode, we're going to talk about the Zanj rebellion, so make sure you are subscribed and have pressed the bell button to see it. Please consider liking, commenting and sharing. It helps immensely. Our videos would be impossible without our kind patrons and YouTube channel members,
BRB
whose ranks you can join via the links in the description to know our schedule, get early access to our videos, access our Discord, and much more. This is the Kings and Generals channel, and we will catch you on the next one.
I actually really like that. That was a good video. I think I'm gonna let's do it. Let's do it this and let's do it this. And we'll keep this in mind. Maybe we can, I wonder if they have stuff about the biblical slavery as well. I think that would be really funny. Okay, non-stamp collector. Okay, I think we're gonna cap this off. It's only 10 minutes, okay? I think this is a really old YouTube channel that I used to really love watching. They did a bunch of, basically, these skits that were made out of fucking MS Paint and, his voice over and over again. And you already learned everything you need to know about biblical slavery from G-Man, though. True. But we are gonna cap it off with this, okay? And then I'm gonna yeet all of you out. And we'll go from there. Okay. Alright. Let's start. 10 minutes, y'all. We can get through this.
It's going to be a lot worse than we figured. They're going to be stealing from each other, lying, being cruel, even hating each other and killing each other. This whole fall from grace is worse than we expected.
Haircuts.
I'll keep that in mind for the next time.
The hair on the side of their heads and their beards, do they end up cutting that?
Well, I'll check. Yes.
Why did I make the fruit of that tree so deliciously tempting? No, that's not on. I want that ban.
Yes, Lord, a ban on cutting the hair on the side of their head. Moving on, Lord, it seems that this sinful nature messes them up so bad that they actually abuse children in some cases.
Do they wear clothes made of wool and linen woven together?
Brumham asked your question? Oh, fuck, wait, did I miss a question from Brumham? In the Discord?
Yes.
Right, that too. Absolute ban on that.
If we may, can we direct you towards the things we think you need to be equally clear on?
Yeah, I heard you. Killing each other, stealing, sitting on chairs that menstruating women have been sitting on.
Well, those first two, yes. Are you going to prohibit them?
Yes.
Good.
And tattoos as well. No tattoos. I am the Lord.
Lord, you hate oppression and cruelty and stealing just as much as tattoos, right?
Yes.
Well, thank goodness for that, because we've got something that you really need to look at then.
What are they doing?
Well, slavery, Lord.
Slavery, eh?
Yes, and on a massive scale, Lord. It begins right away, and looking at the projections, it seems that some of the larger and more powerful civilizations that arise think that it's okay to forcibly take literally millions of people from the continent of Africa, mainly, and make them work for them and practically build their nations for them. Humans actually steal their fellow humans and deprive them of all liberty and dignity for their entire life. They're captured, shackled, often branded, and crammed into boats and shipped overseas where they're sold and literally worked to death. Children are born into slavery and live out their entire lives as slaves, not knowing a single day of freedom.
Africans, you said?
Well, yeah, Africa is going to take the brunt of this, Lord, in the long term. You need to set a clear example of your compassion here, Lord. It's very simple. I mean, you love righteousness and justice, right, Lord? This is just about the worst violation of those imaginable.
Right. Well, let's do it then. It sounds like something that I really need to be very clear about. Let's get this absolutely right, once and for all.
Oh, great. I certainly am glad to hear you say that, Lord. So it's really up to you as far as the wording goes. Do you want a do not commandment or a you must not commandment?
Huh?
Oh, well, so far you've got do not invoke the names of other gods, do not allow a sorceress to live. Both of those are very unambiguous, so we could have do not own another person as property. Or do you want you must not own another person as property, like you have you must not eat any fat or any blood? I'd go with you must not. It's kind of stronger, don't you think? Yeah, I think so. There's not much chance of misinterpretation there. Yeah, but do not is more of a kind of imperative.
God is such an asshole.
The owning people aspect of it, I don't mind so much. Were there any other aspects of it that you were concerned about?
Well, Lord, the idea of owning people as property is probably a good place to start when abolishing slavery, don't you think?
Whoa, hold on. Who's abolishing anything?
Well, Lord, you abolished cross-dressing a minute ago. Don't you think that slavery is equally detestable?
It's tricky, isn't it?
Not really, Lord, no. In fact, these sinful, fallen humans will outlaw it themselves eventually. Yeah, Lord, just command it and it's done. You must not buy and sell people.
No. Look, that aspect in and of itself isn't so much of a concern either.
Lord, what?
Now, look, well, if it's a runaway slave seeking refuge, then that's obviously different. But if it's a fair and square commercial deal, then...
Lord, are you
God,
saying
it's such a classic.
They may buy slaves?
Well, it depends on...
It depends? On what?
Well, you mentioned some situation in the future to do with slaves from Africa.
Yes, Lord.
And that they're taken from Africa to other countries.
Yes, exactly.
The free market isn't free.
See, the slaves are from a different country, so...
All the angels are like, what the fuck?
You guys were thinking that the slaves were going to be my people, the Israelites.
What?
No. Oh, no wonder you're so confused. Oh, sorry. Okay, look, we're obviously talking about two different things, okay? My people aren't allowed to do this to each other, okay? Put this down, okay? You must not rule over your fellow Israelites ruthlessly. Your slaves are to come from the nations around you. From them, you may buy slaves.
Whoa, Lord, what are you saying?
An Israelite owning another Israelite as a slave wouldn't be okay. They're only allowed to keep each other in indentured servitude.
Okay,
right?
hold
However bad
on.
this African slavery thing gets in the future, look, it's a totally different thing.
You're okay
see?
with people being made slaves? What, for life?
Well, no. After 6 years, they have to be set free and provided for with food and wine and even livestock when they go. See, it's like a retirement benefit.
Hold on.
And you're comparing it to some kind of slavery.
What? They can go back to Africa?
Huh? No, I'm not talking about foreign slaves.
Lord, but
you're a bit hung up on this Africa thing. Look, I'm talking about the Israelites. They have to free each other from indentured servitude at the end of 6 years.
Yes, Lord. I get that you're talking about Israelite indentured servants, but
I'm glad he cleared up the
foreign
confusion.
slaves.
Foreign, see, they're from different nations, so...
They stay slaves for life?
They're foreign.
No,
so
indentured servants go free after 6 years.
No,
you're not
Lord,
seeing
we
this
want
clearly.
to talk about
Listen.
Lord,
Israelite indentured servants have to be treated kindly and released at the end of 6 years.
No, Lord, foreigners.
What?
Well, do they get freed? The foreigners that they buy as slaves?
No. You can make them slaves for life.
Whoa,
but the Israelites are to be freed,
whoa.
see? It's a totally different arrangement, okay? You can't even compare it with slavery.
You're mandating lifetime slavery.
Oh my God.
Why do you keep implying that the Israelites can keep each other as slaves when I'm telling you that they
Lord,
can't?
No,
it's just not slavery. It's a
yeah,
totally
he's such
different
a
thing.
dick, dude.
This is something that they're just as likely to opt into voluntarily. Look, it's more like a safety net. If they can't pay their debts, they might opt in to be someone's servant for a period of years until they all go free again and all the debts are written off.
About that, though, Lord. Can I just
bring
you back to these foreign slaves?
This whole
Lord,
channel is a
sold
banger,
into
by the
bondage
way.
for life.
It's a totally different thing.
You seem to be commanding oppressive lifetime slavery.
Israelite indentured servitude has nothing to do with that, though. This is
not
totally
talking
different to
about
that.
that, Lord.
Don't you know that if an Israelite kills his indentured servant,
No.
he gets the death penalty himself? This is a humane system. The servants aren't property.
Yeah, but
They'll
the
be
foreigners
fed and
apparently
housed
are.
by their master, and they'll have job security. In fact, these people are job creators, and you're trying to get in their way. Look, the servants can eventually buy their
Lord,
freedom.
I get what you're saying about that, Lord, but we're concerned about what you said about the foreign slaves.
Does
I'll
this
put it
make
up on
me
the
a
screen
job
here, okay?
creator?
Look, you may buy slaves. They are to come from the nations
getting
around
slave
you.
pills and it's your
You
fault.
can make them slaves for life, but you must not rule over your fellow Israelites ruthlessly.
Right, see, exactly. The Israelites must treat each other with kindness and respect,
No,
see?
but you're
I'm
not
a God of
talking
love.
about that. But Lord, what we see here pretty much describes the worst and most oppressive and inhumane forms of slavery the world will ever see.
Oh, but you're
It'll
not...
be the shame of many nations to have once participated in exactly what you're
Again,
outlining.
why are you trying to make me look bad when I'm saying they have to free each other and
We're
treat each
talking
other
about the people that
humanely?
they don't have to free,
No,
Lord.
no,
Lord.
look,
Talking
right?
about
The Israelites
them.
are not slaves. They're
Hey, Lord,
indentured
look,
servants.
If I may, I'd like to voice a concern, and please just hear me out. If you go with that wording we've got here, people might think that buying slaves from other nations and making them slaves for life was in line with your inherent moral nature.
Oh, well, look, that would obviously be a case of taking my words completely out of context, all right?
No, it would be a matter of obeying them,
look,
Lord.
I can take care of that. I'll blow that argument completely out of the water. Ready? Write this down. Do not mistreat or oppress a foreigner. There. How can anyone now say that I'm ordering anything even remotely cruel?
So you're abandoning what we've got up here so far, then?
No, keep that. It's fine.
Well, it just simply contradicts what you've got here.
Well, I'd say that it complements what we've got here.
Lord, it might be helpful if I describe the characteristics of the slavery that we're trying to avoid. This is what the humans do, and then themselves abolish as being incredibly cruel. Their slaves come from the nations around them. From them, people buy slaves. The slaves become their property, and they make them slaves for life.
That's a totally different...
They bequeath the slaves to their children as inherited property.
But again, that has nothing to do with how the Israelites are meant to treat each other. Look, they have to let each other go at the end of 6 years, and they have to treat each other humanely. Why won't you just...
Okay, Lord, just one more thing then. Can I read a law that the humans come up with themselves? You know, it might be something that you'd like to command yourself now, at the outset of human history.
Yeah, go on.
I'll just adapt it to this context. Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude shall exist on earth.
Look, it just sounds like some kind of man-made morality, which is obviously inferior to a divine commandment.
I don't think so, Lord.
But anyway, look, my commandments for the Israelites are pretty much the same as that anyway. They probably got that law from me. They're not to keep each other in slavery. They're only allowed to keep, their slaves in slavery.
Foreigners.
And temporary residents living among them. And members of their clans. And the people whose cities they want to invade. Right? And actually, I like that bit about bequeathing the slaves to their children as inherited property. Put that in too, up there somewhere.
Oh, no.
But look, I just need to make it absolutely clear that Israelites aren't to do this to each other, because that'd be cruel, and I would never allow it, and it's totally different. Look, I think that's good now. Let's leave that as it is there. Was there anything else you wanted to get my opinion on?
Well, the only other thing was genocide. You're going to be very clearly against wiping entire peoples from the face of the earth, right, Lord?
Yeah, see, it's tricky, isn't it?
Jeez. Yeah, Non-Stamp Collector is one of my favorite, atheist YouTube channels. We are absolutely going to be watching more of Non-Stamp Collector stuff from now on, just because this is such a throwback, and I haven't even liked the fucking video. Alright, friends, this was a good stream. I don't know how we ended up on this fucking rabbit hole, but I appreciate y'all bearing through the technical issues with me. Who are we gonna raid out into? Do you have any suggestions? Yeah, let's get this back up. Now that I've outed myself as slave, a slave supporter, we could send you to Rezi. Let's see what Rezi is doing. We could send you to Wick. I haven't done Wick I haven't raided Wick in a while.
Friday, I don't know what we're gonna talk about. I might take Friday off, to be honest with you.
Oh no, he sounds like he's about to.
But yeah, tune in tomorrow. See you guys later. Who are we raiding out to? Who's streaming?
Oh shit, he's raiding out. Never mind. Alright, let's see what Rezi.
That you're saying in the first place. Whether it's like value.
Okay, it looks like Rezi's doing a gaming stream. Mr. Geek is on. Confederate confirmed. Oh god. Oh my god, no! Testy! Oh no, don't tell me you're gonna raid it to me! Oh no, he's raiding it to me! Alright, what the fuck? Alright, hold on. I need to... Quick, emergency! Alright, we're gonna have to do some juggling. Testy, don't tell me you got Wick to raid into me. I swear to God. Mr. Beans has got the food ready. He's like right on time. And then you get someone to raid into me. What the fuck? Oh my god, yo, Wick. Thanks so much for the raid. I really appreciate it. Testy is so bad. I was about to end stream. Next time he's gonna watch you. Y'all, watch him. Y'all, thank you so much for the raid. Here, I'm gonna, someone shout Wick out. Oh, here, I got it. Thank you so much for the raid. I am ending, unfortunately, but I will stay to chill for just a quick hot second. What you chose to watch instead of Wick tonight, well, what you missed, rather, was a great segment on slavery. Wick, if you're here, Wick, you need to get some people to come on your channel and talk about slavery, okay? Because you're missing out, my friend. Here, I'll show you what we were talking. We were, oh wait, hold on. This is the old video. Here we go. So we watched this debate with these two people, with these four people, and these Christians on the right, okay, were unironically arguing for slavery. Like, this one up top said that he did not have a problem with a person owning another person. And this one on the bottom said that humans deserve slavery, and that in fact it was God who had the good grace to give us laws that enabled us to treat our slaves well. No, Wick, actual slaves, okay? So I think you need to put out some feelers. You need to get some of these people in your channel. You need to get some of these people to come on and say these like absolutely crazy shit, because I think that would be a grand time. But that being said, thank you again. Thank you so much for the raid. I hope your stream went well. Wick fans, if y'all are still in the chat, and you have not followed me, please consider giving me a follow. I stream Tuesdays and Thursdays at 5 p.m. EST, and I'm trying my very best to add a Sunday morning stream where I play some games. Currently, I'm playing Pokemon Leaf Green, but during the rest of the week, we mostly just do reacting and chilling with chat. So if that's something that you like to see, or if you're just tired of like watching Wick, feel free to drop by and say hello. I am going to raid out because my husband has been very nice and has heated up the food right on time so that I'd be ready for the end of stream. Who do we want to raid out to? I'm sorry, if I had time, I'd stay a little longer, but I don't, unfortunately. So let's see who we can go to. I think I might as well Xander. No, I'm not going to Xander. Been saying. Nice to meet you, Julem, and thank you so much for the follow. I saw that follow earlier. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Here, let's send you over to Rezi. I hope y'all have a good rest of your night. Raid Wick? No, we're not raiding Wick. God, I need to learn how to spell Rezi's name. Mr. Geek? Actually, you know what? Here, let's do Mr. Geek, okay? I don't know what he's doing. I don't know what he's doing, but, yeah, let's do that. Alright, friends. Y'all have a great night. I will see you on Thursday at 5 p.m. Just in 2 days. Don't worry. Have a great night, y'all. Peace out.